Welcome, everybody, to this week's beautiful Nym Community Call. I am Sudo, aka Simon. I am head of community at Nym. I'll be your host for this beautiful, very exclusive community call. Today, I have with me Huxian, who's at the very heart of the Nym community. How's it going, friend?
Hey, super nice. Thanks for having me on as a guest. Super excited. I'm a bit nervous too, to be honest.
For real?
Yeah. I really don't like to talk about myself. I like to talk about stuff and interesting topics, but I'm really having a hard time talking about myself. But that was, bound to happen at one point, I guess.
Yeah, at one point it was bound to happen, like you say. Yeah, don't worry, we're not going to be talking too much about you. It's mostly going to be other stuff if you want.
No, I'm chill.
All right. Anyways, but before that, don't get ahead of ourselves. I'm going to go through real quick what happened around Nym throughout these past 2 weeks. So as usual, guys, if you have any questions at any point about anything that is being said, or maybe just some comments, then make sure to leave them in the chat. We're keeping an eye there. And also links to everything that I'm going to mention in a few seconds are going to be shared in the chat, and you can read on for further details. So I'm going to start with yet another blog post that goes on my personal favorite list, which dropped this week, which is Privacy Economics versus Doom Coins, Snitch Coins, and Pocket Cops. So this is basically, it's not an official Nym blog post. This is an opinion piece by Jaya, our CSO, and Tamlin, our writer. This is on Arkham, which as you know, recently launched their Snitch Coin. I think it's a really great name for it. Basically, it's an incentive structure for people to snitch on others and provide personally identifiable information about other people. And then also, of course, WorldCoin, which I guess everybody knows about, project by Sam Altman, which involves literally scanning your eyeballs, which doesn't sound dystopian at all. So make sure to give it a read. More broadly, the article is about incentivized surveillance versus incentivized privacy. And I guess everybody who's on this community call understands and knows what Nym is all about. So give it a read. It's a really good one.
Just wanted to say it's a fantastic piece. So thanks, Jaya, for writing it. Super good thoughts in that. Really appreciate this. And guys, do read it. Pressing the marketing angle here.
Yeah, definitely do read it. It was a very great blog post. In other great news, the Nym Community Grants Program has launched. For now, it was a soft launch. The full program launch will happen sometime in October. And a blog post with further details will be shared in the chat. But in general, this is basically very much welcome and very much a needed way for our community to get involved with Nym in a structured way. I've been really looking forward to the launch of this program. Super happy that it's finally happening. So prior experience with the Nym community is highly recommended. So we're obviously keeping an eye on that. How active you've been on our channels, whether we know you or not, but it's not necessary. So you can, if you have any ideas, you can apply regardless of whether you're like a community OG or not. And for now, we have a few RFPs, requests for proposals, which we thought would be great to launch the program with. More on that in a bit during my conversation with Hux. But keep in mind that you can also suggest your own. So if you think there's something that a project needs or something that you could contribute that would be meaningful, make sure to raise your idea, and then maybe that will turn into an additional RFP. So like I mentioned, this was the soft launch with only a few RFPs, and then the complete program launch will happen in October 2023, co-created with the Nym community. And then moving on, another great piece of news, Element, which is a Matrix client, a fairly private messaging client, can now be used over the Nym Mixnet. A guide will be shared in the chat, so you can follow that guide. As usual, the integration is enabled via Nym Connect, the one-button interface to privacy-enhanced applications. But this time, it's not as easy as it is with Telegram and also some others, the wallets that Nym Connect supports and some other applications. So you do need some command line, but it's not overly complicated. So make sure to check it out. It does work. Matrix is kind of important when it comes to the Nym community. So as I mentioned earlier, here and there, our approach to reaching people in an age of surveillance is to basically have our town square for everybody and anybody to find out about us and learn a little bit about us. Our Discord and Telegram, both of these platforms have some pretty severe privacy problems, especially Discord, which we're talking on right now. But if you want to come to the Nym offices, and hang out with the core team and talk about maybe some things that are more private or more sensitive, then you should come to the Nym Element or like Matrix server, which we use the Element client for, because that's where the important conversations happen with our core community. So see you there, and make sure to use the Nym Connect integration and privacy enhanced element on the network layer. I can't speak today, guys. Apologies for that. And then moving on, the quarterly token economic parameter update was out. It's a pretty boring one because actually nothing changed. So normally, so far, we've raised the saturation point and changed around some parameters to basically follow the state of staking on the mixnet as new tokens were unlocked, vested. But this time around, staking hasn't changed enough to warrant a change like that. So nothing actually changed, but there is a blog post with some details. And I think, Hux, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I just want to barge in, guys, for our beautiful audience, that if anyone has any ideas how to increase stake NIMs on the Mixnet, please come to me. I'm all open and just collecting sort of insights and ideas on this, how we might increase stake NIMs on the Nym Mixnet. That's one of my tiny projects right now. So I'm super excited about this. But yeah, if any one of you had any ideas or any friends who are sort of stuck at before staking their NIMs or any good people who I could talk to, I'm all ears, and just ping me wherever. Would be glad to receive your input too.
Nice one. You keep hijacking my beautiful news roundup, but
sorry.
All for the right reasons. No, it's fine. All for the right reasons. So it's all good. No hard feelings at all. Yeah. So moving on. Yet another Nix chain upgrade happened. I think I reported the previous one on the previous community call. So there was shortly after that, 18th of July, there was another one. It was just as smooth as the previous one. So there's not much to report there. Fortunately, both of them went really, really smoothly. And recently, last week, we conducted the first quarterly Nym mega quiz. So as probably many of you know, we have weekly quizzes on all of our Telegram channels where you basically get a blog post to read, to learn a little bit about Nym, and then you can put your knowledge to the test. Now, we did the large version of that on Discord, which was quarterly. Yeah, you did nail the quiz, Uncle M. Did you win? Were you first? Yeah. Anyways, congrats for that. It was a really fierce competition between some of the absolute best of the best in the community. It was very fun. So next time around, in about 3 months, make sure to join again. Keep an eye on our chats because we'll be announcing there. And we've been running a survey on the Nym token, specifically using the Nym token. We've already received 200 submissions, over 200 submissions. Big thanks for that. The survey is out in, I believe, 8 different languages. So whichever you speak, please make sure to fill out the survey because this kind of feedback and data is invaluable for us to be able to spread the Nym token a bit better and make sure that everybody has access to it and it is easy to use and there's no friction involved. And then 2 more things, and then we can move on to our conversation with Hux. There was a Twitter space with Agalos Kiayas. I never know how to pronounce his name, but he's a founding member of the Nym advisory board, and he's also a decorated veteran when it comes to cryptography. He's behind IOHK, by the way, and also co-authored our token economics paper with Claudia Diaz. So it was a super interesting conversation. I highly recommend everybody listening to it. I was really glad. I knew about him. I knew about his work, but never heard him about speaking about Nym specifically. The link was shared in the chat, so the recording of the Twitter space is available, and you can listen to it. A blog post was also released about the same. I think a link will be shared to that one as well in the chat, so make sure to check it out and listen to the recording. It was very interesting. And then Max, who you already know, he's our senior DevRel. You may already know him from our DevRel AMAs. By the way, there's going to be one next Wednesdays on this same stage, so stay tuned for that. He gave a presentation about Nym integrations, specifically with Cosmos SDK blockchains. The recording is available on YouTube, so make sure to check it out. And yeah, that was it basically for my news roundup. How would you rate my news roundup, Hux?
It's a 10 out of a 10. Fantastic news, lots of cool blog pieces, new integrations, community grants program. I mean, I'm loving it.
All right, so no constructive feedback. All right, well, whatever.
Okay, one thing though, that's how you say it, no?
Go ahead.
Your voice is fading in and out for me. It's a bit like as if you were sitting on a swing somehow with your microphone. Not sure if you're doing that or not.
Oh, damn. I am on a swing, but I will stop swinging then, and I will be staying closer to the microphone. Thanks for that.
Fantastic. Other than that, perfect. Thank you.
My boss is telling me to sit still and focus, so I will just try to do that. All right, man. Well, welcome to this very first community call. You've never been on one of these before, right?
Yeah. No, it's not my first community call, but I've never been interviewed before at a community call, so I'm super nervous. I mentioned earlier. It's one thing to talk with interesting people about interesting things and ask good questions, but it's another thing to talk about yourself. And yeah, let's see how I do.
Don't worry, man. It will be an intense line of questioning, but it will be over before you know it. So it will be painful, but only for a very short period of time.
Yeah. So just a bit of background for me. The biggest audience ever spoke in front of about myself was like 2,000 people with a huge LED screen, and I was literally having a panic attack just before that. But probably it's not worse than that, no? We are amongst friends. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go indeed. Can you introduce yourself a little bit for those who may not know you?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be quite new for everyone because just before I get into introducing myself, so hey guys, I'm Hux. This is my 4th pseudonym that I'm using. I'm changing like characters every year or so, but Huxian was born when I entered Nym Shipyard Academy. This online character that I'm playing or am right now on Digital Spheres, it's the same age as my connection to Nym. So yeah, and a bit about myself. I'm super over 15 years ago. I think I have 3 undergrad degrees, one environmental engineering, one environmental manager, and an economist too. I've been working in management consulting, mostly with process engineering, business transformation, sort of designing services for customers in Fortune 500 companies. Then I've done a fair amount of startupping. I was leading an IoT recycling startup. We were producing hardware. It was quite fun for a number of years. This also gave me a chance to live a year in Chile and also a year in Brazil. That's why I speak a bit of Spanish. And then when I returned to my actual home country from the startup craze, the startup was sold, by the way, but not for so much money, but it was a good experience to see how, for me, how corrupted this whole venture capital, startup hype world was back then. Even this was 2015 or 16. Around this time, I sort of went back into my original profession or passion, which was environmental activism. I was leading a number of climate change campaigns in the region, established some super cool university climate office networks in my country, and worked a lot with like carbon emission cutting and plastic waste cutting in different industries. And then I changed my sort of passion because I thought that like climate change is real, it's happening. I'm not going to make so much of a difference if I make a cool recycling, startup out of it. So then I thought that maybe I'm better off sort of advocating for local things. So I went into 4 years of intense nighttime and cultural activism, which included lots of partying and lots of bridge building and the community building. It was super interesting because I was advocating, lobbying with politicians and business leaders for the nighttime economy, which was already back then in this old world was kind of somehow seen as a very lunarish thing. So like a very shady thing. Like, why would anyone advocate for nighttime economy? What's good happening during the night, But yeah, that was what I've been up to, I think right before COVID. And during COVID, I actually moved to the countryside and I started full-time looking for sort of other ways to make a difference in this world. And that's how I got into working with lots of different DAOs. I started working mostly with Solarpunk DAOs in the beginning. So like DAOs with environmental impact or DAOs that wants to change the world through better incentivized regenerative practices. And I was doing quite a bit of work, but I didn't quite find my community or my niche, or I never wanted to stay bigger than for one project or 2 projects. And I always quite felt that the whole blockchain space is a bit of a similar bubble than the startup space, which I've seen enough of. It's like raising money, talking bullshit in front of investors and all that. And it was quite disappointing for me to see this happening with something that has with some technology that has the potential to change the world for the better. The same thing's happening. Capitalism is, growing all over it and sort of corrupting it. And I think that's the short rundown of my resume in a sense. That's how I got to meet you, in one Ethereum Telegram channel at one point just before the Shipyard Academy started, right?
Yeah, in about October last year. And here you were worried about, talking about yourself, and you gave a much better intro or like overview of your past than I could ever have. Anyways, so let's talk about how you got into Nym. So yeah, I did do the initial indoctrination once we first met in that Ethereum group. But what made you stick around?
Yeah, but let's not forget that was a phone call Monday midday where we spoke for like 4 hours straight about everything. And you weren't just shitting Nym, but we were really discussing sort of surveillance and how. And I was really aware. I was involved in different crypto anarchist groups for a year or so by then. What was really sort of transformative for me, even just in that first phone call of ours, was that how little I truly know about the state of the internet today. I was using a VPN. I was using several email addresses. I was using pseudonyms, different characters, so to say, different images, not disclosing my name. But I wasn't really aware how truly fudged our internet is today. That's why I super enjoyed Shipyard to learn about all these things, and not just how bad the situation is, but also that there are actually technologies like Nym and the Mixnet and zero-knowledge credentials, which can make a huge transformative change if we manage to sort of create products with this for mass adoption, or manage to tell a good story for a huge amount of people, why we would need to use different tools to access digital communication platforms or to fund, sort of form businesses. So the Shipyard Academy was for me truly, really transformative. I really learned a lot from how things are in the world. And yes, there are technologies that can truly fundamentally change the status quo. Shipyard Academy gave me back my faith in the things that blockchain and blockchain-enabled technologies can really live up to their promise. Because their promise is, and I'm sure that many of you guys in the audience have seen this meme when it's like this stick man, when the stick dad sort of opens the door and then are you winning, son? And the son is usually lying on the floor, I don't know, drugged out or sort of very not really winning. So I think that as a generation, I'm part of the millennial generation, as a generation, we're sort of losing, or we're not really winning collectively. And I find that crypto and sort of the imaginary and the sci-fi potential of crypto is something that can be the biggest wealth transfer and power transfer of our generation. But it's failing to live up to that. It's getting corrupted. And when I learned about that, this is also fundamentally due to the fact that how the internet is, built up, or how we use the internet and how we sort of treat our digital identities and data, that's when it sort of, I regained this motivation that blockchain-enabled technologies and mixnet-enabled technologies can truly change the world for the better, when hopefully different people with different backgrounds, maybe younger people, I'm not a gerontocrat, but I'm kind of against old people hoarding power and money. So I think that the time is ripe for us, and I mean it in the broadest possible sense, to sort of regain some footing and regain some control over the shared destiny of our planet and societies and culture, by and large. I went a bit off track here, but I hope it was worth it.
Yeah, that was the best tangent ever. Thanks for that. And more in Shipyard Academy in a bit. But I guess actually we can't talk about the Pineapple proxy, now called Pineapple Hive, without talking about Shipyard Academy.
Yeah.
So probably anybody who spent any amount of time in the Nym community has heard about Pineapple Hive. What is it about, and how did it come to be?
Far too kind for you to say this, but so the origin story of this is so when we were doing Shipyard, right, and even though I've been around tech stuff and I've been doing a lot of different deep diving. I'm not a programmer, not a coder, right? But I've been working around designing architectures and different service models and all that. But sort of to understand the Nym mixnet, it's a lot of information at the same time. So I was really wanted to find people who I can talk to about this stuff, not having to feel stupid asking these things from the people who are on the team, or, people who know it a lot better, obviously. So we kind of formed this study group where we wanted to just chat about the architecture or the tokenomics. And it was super small in the beginning, but it was really well serving the purpose of us just chatting about these things and breathing it out and asking stupid questions from each other. Why pineapple, right? Because that's the other part of our lore. So as I mentioned, I've been around Lunarpunkish crypto-anarchist circles for a long time. And what I always had a bit of trouble with is to identify myself with this very dark, hooded, anonymous kind of character behind the guy folks mask who wants to blow up things. I'm doing this work for me not to have to blow up things. I'm doing this work to build things which not include, lighting up garbage cans. I always had this dissonance with identifying myself with this hiding in the shadows kind of character. I played a lot of Shadowrun. Not sure who's familiar with that game, but I played a lot of Shadowrun. It's a cypherpunk sort of RPG. And even in those settings, I was always sort of wearing more colorful clothes and all that. It was you inspired the pineapple things because you were really going on crazy rants about how people who put pineapple on their pizza are banned from Shipyard Academy. Do you remember that?
That's a bit of an exaggeration, though, okay? I didn't say that. I just said in my introduction that pineapple has no place on the pizza. And I stand by that statement, guys. You can fight me.
It's a year-long story, so I can, live with some theatrical prose here. So yeah, but basically that's a really good metaphor. So I found that one, there's a pineapple emoji, which is truly good for omnichannel branding, right? Because you can use a pineapple everywhere. But even more important than that, I think that hating someone for putting or not putting pineapple on their pizza is probably the stupidest thing that could divide us as humans or coworkers or, people who share a cause. So basically, this is metaphor for all the things that could divide us. And we use that to turn it around, change it to a metaphor which is sort of all-inclusive. And also pineapple is a funky fruit. It has this little hair and it's yellow and it's sweet. And it's also really not fitting the Lunarpunk or the crypto anarchist sort of imaginary or visuals. And that's also a super good reason to use Pineapple Hive as a sort of Lunarpunkish organization, but which is not limited to this aesthetics and not limited to the people who are hackers, programmers, and who are really living the aesthetical side of the narrative that the Lunarpunks lead at this moment. Was it good, this summary? Or do you have any questions?
Yeah, absolutely. At least for me. But I think we talked about Shipyard Academy so much that I'm going to just straight up ask you to summarize Shipyard Academy. But before that, I will say that last time around, we ran the first round of Shipyard Academy. And one of the most beautiful things that are happening this year is that the second iteration of Shipyard Academy, which is going to be much bigger and better in every single way than the first one, is actually co-designed with our community, including you and also others, which I really, really like to see. So it's very exciting to me. So on that note, there are a lot of new people I see in the audience today who probably haven't been around since Shipyard Academy. There are some people who have the Shipyard Academy roles. How would you summarize Shipyard Academy?
Very good question. Well, Shipyard Academy is a meeting place, journey, and a vessel that takes us collectively through learning a lot about how the world is today and how it could be if the mixnet would be mass adopted. But it's also community forming, and it's also just the greatest place to hang out with like-minded people and share questions, ideas, and sort of fantasize about a better world together and what we could do about it. So I think Shipyard Academy is truly an academy, so that the academy is really good. I'm yet to see us building ships, but I can live with the metaphor here. So, but it is truly an academy.
So folks, Shipyard Academy 2 is coming this year, pretty soon. I mean, not very soon, but pretty soon TM. And yeah, stay tuned for that. And this lovely gentleman over here is co-designing it with us.
Yeah, I mean, when I said it's such a privilege, I could have never imagined that I can do this work together with you and the whole team. It's super interesting, and it's really motivating to take an experience which I've partake in and sort of get all that learning and knowledge and make it better. So yeah, I'm super, super excited about Shipyard 2.0 and cannot wait for it to start.
We need to stop shilling it though now because it's a few months off still. But stay tuned, folks, because announcements are coming at some point. Now, moving on actually to the meat of this conversation, because you did mention, Lunar and solar and all of that stuff already. And lunar technologies is what this conversation is supposed to be about. So maybe for those who don't know what these are, what is lunar? What is solar? What is Lunarpunk? What is Solarpunk? Give us a summary.
Both Lunarpunk and Solarpunk are sort of imaginaries. What does that mean? It's sort of ideas about the future, which is enabled by the technology that we're developing today. So crypto for me, was like real life sci-fi because it's sort of a very abstract stuff that can create futures that personally me or us right here, right now can live through. So both Solarpunk and Lunarpunk are sort of these different versions of a future built on crypto. And while Solarpunks imagine a world where people live in harmony with the nature and you don't really have to work because you have universal basic income and everybody is doing how they best can contribute to the society. One of the key aspects of Solarpunk vision is that it's sort of from around the Ethereum community. So Solarpunks really huge believers of transparency and transparency across the board. And it's somewhat of and going to the lunar side, the Lunarpunks, how is it different? I also share this notion that believing in utmost transparency and believing that if we create super inclusive financial systems, everybody can, sort of access anytime and participate in, then the existing power structures is going to hand over the control and sort of let people thrive. So in contrast to Solarpunk ideas and Solarpunk future vision, Lunarpunks, for me at least, have a more realistic grasp on how things work in life or how the capitalist or surveillance capitalist machine is, spinning our global economy right now. Because Lunarpunks say that we have to create sort of shielded, not hidden communities, but have to not go into the transparency narrative, but have to create private and cryptographically protected sub-communities which can cooperate and not participate in the bigger power system. So Lunarpunks in that sense are putting forward privacy as opposed to transparency, but also very much living in the same realm of possibilities as Solarpunks. For me, it's super weird because I'm also, as I said, I'm coming from an environmental activism and climate change activism sides. I read a lot of Solarpunk sci-fis, like novels, and I'm super in for solar panels and living in harmony with nature. For that, I'm also somewhat always or identified as a solar punk before, but I just cannot believe that if we create inclusive systems which all work nice and distribute wealth equally, then current power structure is just going to let that happen. So that's why I think that preparing for a future where we need to protect ourselves better, we need to protect our data, our integrity, and sort of our communities better from the all-seeing eyes of Orwellian mechanisms. That's why Lunarpunk is a bit closer to my heart, and that's why I also kind of somewhat consider myself a Lunarpunk, but I would like to introduce two more new terms just to confuse everyone at this point, which is technosolarism and technolunarism. It's somewhat of an applied and more flexible way of thinking about these terms. Whereas both the Solarpunk imaginary and the Lunarpunk imaginary currently is thinking in these very maximalist, very abstract, or very, it's either this or that, it's either can be done or this or like that. I think that technosolarism and technolunarism are somewhat more localized, more flexible, and more livable or more imaginable future visions or future utopias to hold on to. How was that summary, guys?
That was beautiful. That was a 9.7 out of 10. If you guys have any questions about either Lunar or Solarpunk, feel free to leave them in the chat. But since you mentioned already earlier this sort of rebellious vibe where, we're sitting in dark corners in hoodies and we're scheming to bring down the big evil system, right? I guess we should also talk a little bit about what Lunar is not, because I think, so Rose from Darkfi gave us a super interesting talk recently about the mimetic corner that the privacy space is in. Mm-hmm. And I guess that is really connected to the lunar movement in general. So these two are somewhat synonymous to each other. And I guess that energy is sort of keeping us in that corner. So let's also talk about what Lunar isn't.
Okay, so I think that what we should highlight here, and it's also sort of rhymes with what Pineapple is trying to do, is that at least how I understand how everything works is that people need to collectively imagine a future, but they somewhat share this vision of a future and then have a consensus that this is the future where we're going towards for, then that will sort of manifest itself through technology, through societal and cultural dynamics, etc. What Lunarpunk is not achieving currently, I think that it's still a super niche aesthetics and super niche cultural and narrative corner, which is really appealing to only a handful of people or to just some of the people. But even though my mom would be full on against anti-surveillance and and more equal economy, she would never identify herself with sort of this hooded hacker persona, which is really trying to overthrow the government. So I think that Lunarpunk would need to come out of this mimetic corner by being more inclusive and being more colorful and showing that there's not just one Lunarpunk character, not this hooded Shadowrunner hacker archetype, but there's so many different characters which have a place in the Lunarpunk future or techno-lunar future or whatever you want to call it. And I think if it manages, or if we collectively manage to make this happen and sort of turn the narrative or broaden the narrative to let more people imagine together with us a future where there's not all our data is super public and we're not being manipulated on a global scale as a society just by the sheer act of surveillance, then we might have a lot better chance to manifest this future together.
Does all of this mean that solar is bad then, in simple terms?
It doesn't mean that. So a funny thing that recently I had a friend who's doing an article about all these punk themes like cypherpunk, lunarpunk, solarpunk, and he sort of asked in our group that for people, what punk genres do we identify with? I written down like 10 different sort of punks who I think I identify with. So I also identify the solarpunk part because I truly in for some of the narrative, what they're selling or telling or shaping. But I don't think that we need to sort of hate those people because they put pineapples on their pizzas, right? So that's exactly what I'm saying, that we really shouldn't. So Solar and Lunar are sort of...
Let me stop you right there. No, I'm just kidding.
Then I think that's coming from Jaya, because she was also saying at one point that Solar and Lunar are sort of the two sides of the same coin, or like part of one cycle, or such as their day and night in a day on Earth. There's also need for Solarpunk and Lunarpunk for this entity or the cycle to be complete. So yeah, no hate in Solarpunks here.
that last point was what I wanted to get out of this. So now you have some cookie points with Jaya. I'm sure she was pretty happy to hear this response. Yeah, but that is true. It really is just like two sides of the same coin, right? It's imaginaries. It's ways to think in. It's ways to come up with the next ideas. It's not anything overly concrete, or anything that you need to like tie yourself down to that I'm lunar, I'm solar. It really is just a continuum.
Yeah, and I think this is a good point to sort of call everyone to think together about what the future might look like in concrete terms, not in vague futuristic terms, that it's going to be all equal and there's going to be no money, maybe. I don't know, that there's not these super broad, intangible aspects. But if we do need to start collectively thinking about how our future might look like if Nym or the mixnet becomes a mass adopted thing, or if these technologies pick up and there's truly a lot of people using them, and we can create networks, organizations, and communities where we can communicate in private and also maybe transact in private with certain, I guess, restrictions, or not all transactions need to be private, or not all communications need to be private, but how a world would look like if this all comes to reality, how we might feel, what might change. And I think it's just, it's a super interesting question, because we sort of also, if anyone has seen Rose's talk on this, on the Web3 privacy conference, she also misses how to come out of the magnetic corner, right? So there's no truly groundbreaking ideas as of yet, at least what I've seen, how to sort of come out of this postmodernist way of saying that, okay, surveillance capitalism is really bad, current system is really bad, it's totally fucked up. We know it's fucked up, and we know it's bad, but it's now we're adults, no one's gonna come and help us. We should, self-organize and figure out how to help ourselves together collectively. So that's something that I'm truly excited about, and this is one of my key motivational aspects, to find more concrete images or more concrete things in our near future, in how our culture might change, how our society might change, how our lives might change if, 1 million people connect to the mixnet every day, for example.
In the meantime, I tried to find the recording of the talk, but I couldn't. I will dig it up though and share it after the community call. It was a really, really good talk. But like you said, I also missed from it, how do we get out of this? And that's part of the reason why I enjoy Pineapple Proxy so much, because you guys are the first I've ever come across who are talking about these topics, and also myself, guilty as charged. I also sometimes talk about privacy and surveillance in very bleak terms, and it's really nice to see someone doing the opposite of that and keeping it fun. But let's start talking about some lunar tech, actually. So how do you define lunar technologies?
So yeah, what I think is really truly bad today around how the internet works, or how our digital lives work, is that we sort of missed to notice that how the platform economy, or Web2, and how this sort of super good, truly fantastic UX optimized for user experience, it's so easy to connect and talk to people, and it just blew up into our faces, and ordering things from Amazon online, buying books, listening to podcasts. The whole world today is built around us giving away our data, not unwillingly, but unknowingly, or super unconsciously. And that kind of lunar tech for me are all the pieces of the technology stack which sort of help humans to regain our human dignity, or our actual humanity, what makes us human. Because if you truly think about it, and this is my analogy, what I've already told you, I guess, by now, but I think that in real life, IRL, things are selective disclosure. What this means, that so it kind of, I can share what I only share with you or with this audience now, what I want to share. When someone says, please introduce yourself, I can choose how I introduce myself, and I can, even in a romantic relationship, you can choose what you talk about from your past to your partner, for example. As opposed to this, the current Web2 and the current, how currently the internet works, is the exact opposite of this. So if I really want to have all the information about some specific individual, I can just Google myself, like social engineer myself to death. And in 2 days, I'll know, all your childhood stories, which university you go to, how did you look when you graduated, what your grades were, maybe even. So it's a complete twisted out world where all our data is there on this is free to take marketplace, and people just have to sort of learn how to Google search a bit to find out anything about you. And I'm talking about only, like just regular people. I'm not mentioning corporations or governments, or even bigger organizations, international organizations, who might want to sort of data mine on a larger scale all this data. I think that lunar tech is all those technologies which sort of brings us back to how things used to be on a human cultural scale. So not how things are. And the difficult thing in this is that most of us, even I guess I'm not fully aware of the extent of how twisted out how my digital life affects my real life, my physical reality, and how much is twisted of this regular corner. So how weird it is currently. So I think that lunar tech is all those technological pieces which, again, help us to regain some of our dignity and personal spheres and private spheres. I don't think that there's a separate online sphere and offline sphere. Right by now, all our lives are, I mean, just imagine how many days all of you are connected to the internet. At least I switch off my phone for night, but I'm guessing that most of the people at least have spent 12 hours with a 3G connection to the internet and just communicating, searching, watching videos, posting this, reading that. Digital realm is super integrated into our physical lives already, and it's really rotten. That's why I'm super motivated to be the part of this community and to do the things that I do, because I truly believe that if we can create technologies and systems and applications that sort of give back our digital lives to us and our data to us and our dignity to us, or our integrity, then we might have a good chance to sort of heal society on a larger scale, to heal all these broken patterns or the toxic cultural parts. And I truly believe that, and again, I'm super critical on technologies because I've seen so many different startups, I've seen so many different angles on how to change the world, but after a year, I'm honestly still saying that what Nym is developing, and there's no shilling here, it's a Nym community call, so I can just be as enthusiastic as I want to be about this, right? So I think that the Mixnet and sort of ZK Nyms are truly a fundamental part of the lunar tech stack that we might assemble for different use cases, or what communities might use to achieve their goals. I'm sure that this technology stack is going to be different for different use cases, different communities, and there's going to be people who use super encrypted, like disappearing messaging applications only because they kind of need that. But there might be some people who want to keep their messages and they don't want to use encrypted messaging because there's no point in that. But the mixnet, the layer 0, the bottom layer of the lunar stack, I think is probably the most important part of all of it. Because just think about how a Monero transaction leaks data. It has a ton of places. So it's not, even though that one tiny part of one thing is private, it doesn't mean that the whole thing is not leaking a ton of data everywhere. Your connection, your hardware, and it's just, I truly believe, and that's why I also kind of really happy about that Shipyard 2 is coming around the corner, and we're going to talk more about probably in different forums about these narrative aspects too, because I think that Nym is a very good base layer, not just for the technology stack, but also sort of for the main narrative of the new internet potentially, or the post-web, or however you want to call it. Sorry, too long rambling.
No, it was totally fine, but I need to give a disclaimer to everybody. I didn't ask this guy to shill Nym this hard. Shilling Nym is always allowed on the Nym community call, but this was not a requirement. But thank you anyway.
No worries. No, but I got into this excited mood, so I'm like this now. Yeah.
Maybe we could also talk a little bit about, you mentioned the lunar tech, I guess, or the lunar tech stack, sorry. That's, again, a bit synonymous with the privacy tech stack, right? So there are some problems with that, because there is a distance between the tech stack of the everyday person as you're using the internet. Like you said, it has surveillance baked in all kinds of ways. I don't think it has to be baked in though, but it is, because knowledge is power, and the more information we can gather, the better we can do various things. We can target ads and sell stuff to you and manipulate your behavior, but also we can look out for all those very bad terrorists if we're like national agencies. So yeah, so everybody's using that, and it comes with a huge amount of simplicity, right? So I pay one tap everywhere with my phone, which is Google Pay. And then the card that is added to Google Pay is Revolut, which is also like a big, like neo fintech sort of surveillance monster. So these things are incredibly simple. And as soon as you step towards our corner, which is not only a memetic corner, but also a technological one, as soon as you step towards that and you want to use stuff that is a bit more private, and respects your privacy a bit better, you start like exponentially increasing the difficulty, and the steps to take, and also the amount of learning that is required to understand, how to protect your privacy. This is why Nym has the approach of being, first of all, infrastructure level and also mass privacy, right? Mass privacy as a solution to mass surveillance, because otherwise you just really don't have a way out of this. So maybe let's talk a little bit about the problem with the lunar stack, and how do you see it go away?
A metaphor we can sort of bring in here is that imagine a situation where you have a customer to serve with a service. And if you know all about this person, how old they are, what their favorite drink is, what music they like, and et cetera, it's super easy to give a very good user experience, because the more private data we disclose, the better the user experience can get. The less data we give away, the harder it is to give a good or a very personalized user experience. Basically, in the end, if all goes well and the Lunar stack, comes to fruition, then we might not give at all any data away, maybe just if being queried in our ZK space and sort of providing some input to the ZK queries of like what we want to prove we are. But fundamentally, there's a huge challenge here with user experience and designing these products in a way that even though they're not giving data away, they are still somewhat convenient to use. Because basically, currently we pay for this convenience, we pay with our data for the convenience of all the digital tools that we use today. So this is super hard, because if you really want to use a private chat application, the IRCD application, for example, it's a dark-fight chat application, super cool, by the way. You really need to handle command line tools. You need to serve. It's not hard to do it, but an average user most likely will never get to that motivational part where they install a terminal window and they sort of read the instructions and they follow 10 points through. It's like the scale between privacy and convenience. So the more private something is, the less convenient it's going to be to use it. So this is truly an exciting design challenge. And since I can still share a bit about myself, I'm working a lot around service design and design thinking and sort of user experience. And this is somewhat my favorite challenges to solve these things. And that's why also I'm finding this, it's a very challenge to design privacy first tools or Lunar stack in a way that it's up for mass adoption, which can be potentially mass adopted, which is maybe not 2 clicks, but 4 clicks, but gives full scale privacy. And it is, I think, a truly exciting question of innovation. How do we create these tools in a way that we don't compromise user privacy, but we provide a very good experience, which is easy to use and easy to explain to my mom or whoever I want to explain it to?
That's a really good point. Even if these tools, and services were as simple and as seamless as the alternative, we would be starting from disadvantage, right? Because the network effect is real. So, let's go with the example of Facebook. Good luck organizing your high school reunion on Matrix, because maybe from your entire high school, you will be able to find one person who's using Matrix, which is a privacy-preserving messaging platform. But, you can do so on Facebook. So that's a network effect. So even if you start from something that is exactly as simple and as seamless and as mature as these tools are that everybody's using, even then you're starting from a disadvantage. Let's still talk a little bit about what these tools would look like in your opinion. Like, what does a lunar future, ideal lunar future, look like? Do we lobby to change Facebook? Do we replace Facebook? And of course, Facebook is just an example here. We could also talk about Revolut. We could also talk about Google, of course. We could also talk about Amazon and basically any company. So the model today, surveillance-based model, that's what drives our economy. So what does the future look like, the lunar future?
It's a tough question in network effect of how, high school reunions organized on Matrix. It's a super tough question. I believe that's why we're sort of the most important work needs to be done around sense making of current reality, of like the narrative work. I think it's more important than the tech work currently, because until we realize how disadvantaged we are just because of using these tools and how these tools really truly work, not in a scary, frightening way, but more in a enlightening way for the masses, so people understand that it's really not good for them how current internet infrastructure, internet tools or platforms are working. I think that the ideal, and there's a good example in the chat from fantastic friend Serbs Marine, CGI, the simplex chat. So there's already examples of applications and software which is convenient to use, but also sort of maintains, it's a privacy-first chat application, but it's quite convenient to use. And there's another aspect to all this, because what we didn't really talk about yet is how much we, or at least average people, cannot really differentiate between their digital and real-life personalities. Because I haven't been on my Facebook, I think, in 2-3 years, but I cannot delete my account. I'm not sure how to delete it, but I just cannot go and delete all those photos, those connections. There's an emotional aspect of...
You can't delete your Facebook data.
Yeah, I mean,
you can archive your account, but it's always there.
Yeah,
they want that, so they are not gonna be like, yeah, sure, we'll delete it for you. No, that's not happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, good to know, but still, yeah. So there's this emotional aspect of like we're part that too. We belong to these communities. We belong to those, I don't know, Facebook groups that we're part of. Some people actually do activism in these groups, and they think that that's somewhat more meaningful than going out in real life and doing something tangible. There's a very tricky question from Nick in the chat.
I was just about to ask that. Let me ask that. Let's do the. It's a good question. I like it.
Okay.
So explain Nym. This is probably going to be our closing question because we only have 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
But explain Nym in one sentence. Explain it like I'm 5.
I would say something like Nym is the key for your digital future or the future internet. It's hard to do in one sentence. I'm going to have to come back with a proper one on this, but a gateway to the future internet, but then the future internet doesn't really capture the personal aspects of that future internet, meaning that you're not being data mined and taken advantage of. So
just a quick note, I really like this real-time struggle that you're going through right now, because I've been with Nym for almost like 1.5 years. I've been talking a lot about Nym, of course, both privately, just a private individual, and also as part of my job, obviously. But the elevator pitch, especially the one sentence elevator pitch for Nym, is a very difficult thing to come up with, because it is aimed at solving a problem. And unless you also explain the problem, it's, at least in my mind, it's very hard to explain it just as a solution. That's my problem with it.
Maybe the key or the gateway to digital freedom. Those are words which people, I think, understand on a broader scale. It's also a bit too vague for me. But I do feel that regaining our sovereignty or regaining our freedom in the digital realm, this is what Nym offers a solution for. So yeah, key to, let's leave it like that, I think, for now. And the key for our digital freedom. But it sounds too freedom fighterish for me. So you have to work on this, but it's a collective effort. So if you do have a spin-off of this idea or better ideas, feel free to shoot it in the chat or anywhere where we can read it. Yeah, it's also true what Swiska is saying.
Yeah.
Have to entitle it, yeah. The best analogy so far is that the party analogy which someone created in Shipyard 1 with the ChatGPT thing, like, that Nym is sort of the party analogy of Nym. Was it that the Nym is the bouncer, or Nym is the party, the safe space itself where the party happens, where people don't have to disclose who they are, but they can have a good time?
It's been a while, but I believe it was actually like the bouncer was the gateway who made sure that only those who have a ticket can get in. And then the servers, the waiters, anyways, we're not doing this any service. So let's, because I can't remember actually. So let's not.
Basically, this brought back a better answer to Nick's question, because I think that Nym is creating a digital safe space, like a truly safe space digitally. It enables the possibility of a digital safe place to exist, which so far it's non-existent. Even the possibility of a digital safe space is not there. So, but with Nym, there can be truly safe online spaces where you are in control of what you share and what data you give to who, for what purposes.
I don't have a one-sentence answer either. What I recently came up with to explain this in a very simple way, Nym is the door. On the internet, you don't really have the door. You can't say, let me close this door and share the secret with you, or let me close this door and go to the bathroom. Let me close this door and do something behind it, which you're not going to see. There's no door. So in the real world, like you said, the real environment enables that there is a door, right? Or you can just go in the forest, far away from everybody. That's the real world. But the internet does not have that door. So I would say Nym is the door. That's what we're trying to build here, to put the door on the internet, which we can close on ourselves.
Yeah. Also a very good one. We're getting there, you see. It's slowly, but surely we're getting to a good enough solution of what Nym is in one sentence. 1 year and we're done.
This is actually for the entirety of the audience. There is very much some narrative work to be done, not only for Nym, but also for the privacy space in general. Again, I will dig up that talk by Rose from Darkfi. I think she really has a point in terms of the mimetic corner that the privacy space is in. It is really up to all of us to come up with the next narrative that will talk not only just to us, in our black hoodies sitting in a corner. I'm very much one of those dudes as well, in some ways, but also to the average person, to the normie, because privacy starts, at least that's Nym's approach, and I believe that this is probably the one feasible approach at this point. Privacy starts with a mass approach, and mass starts with the normies who are wearing not black hoodies but something else. So what we need to also talk to them, and I think the narrative right now is missing, which speaks to those people as well. On that note, friend, we're bumping up against the end of our chat. Do you have any beautiful closing thoughts for this amazing chat?
Yeah, it flew by quicker than I expected. You were right. No, I really enjoyed it. I hope that our audience members also did, hear something meaningful or something was interesting for you guys. All I want to say is that, super happy to share this mission with all of you. And I think that this is really, truly a cause that is worthwhile to unite our forces for. There is a future which is going back to normal in a way, which is digital freedom in a way, which is the data, private internet access in a way. But I do think that there is a future what's worth fighting for, and what most of the work should be done around Nym and friends and these lunar tech projects. I didn't tell one thing from our talking point list, Sudo.
I'm sorry. Did I do a poor job as always?
No, you did a fantastic job. We just have a good chat. But I might just shield myself, or I don't know, because so part of my interest, I came to a point where I didn't have so many answers with all these things that we're trying to pin down now, that I accidentally applied for a PhD and I sort of got in. So from September, I'm back to university and trying to figure out how digital trust and reputation works in an anonymous setting, or how these technologies might change our society and what effect they can have on our society by and large. So I truly went down the rabbit hole big time. So I committed myself for 4 years of academic research stuff. So if anyone wants to chat more or has good ideas or good articles coming across this topic, I'm super open to one-on-one chats or resources shared, because I'm gonna be digging deep into this topic as much as is physically possible, I guess, in the next 4 years.
Yeah, actually, we really should have talked about your PhD. Anyways, guys, sorry about that. I didn't bring up that topic. I need to go to a meeting, so I will have to leave this call. But huge thanks for coming on, man. Hopefully the personal part was not overly hard for you, was it?
I was just a bit nervous beforehand, but now I'm okay. But thank you for your consideration.
All right, so on that note, folks, the call was recorded, so it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, to the usual community calls playlist. Huge thanks for joining. There is a poll up for this call, so DM Mr. Pizza J the third. He's the person responsible for creating the amazing pull-ups for these community events. Drop him a DM and he will send you your link where you can collect your pull-up. If you have any thoughts regarding anything that was said during this call, please reach out to us, whether publicly or privately. Once again, please reach out to Hux as well if you have any input on his PhD. He needs help. No, actually, he doesn't. I think he got...
Or token usability. That's the other thing that I'm looking for now, how to make people stake more tokens or trade them more. I'm super keen on digital trust and all these things, but also more importantly on the shorter run, I really want to find out why people not staking their Nyms, or what bigger Nym token holder, back holder is doing with their tokens, or what would help them to use them more or stake them on the mixnet. So that's the other topic. I'm waiting for your pings and DMs anytime, 24/7.
And also, if you can tell me how I can become one of those big back holders, also DM me. It would be much appreciated. And on that note, I will say goodbye, guys. Happy, lovely weekend to everybody. Huge thanks for coming on, Hux.
Oh, yeah.
And catch you next Wednesday on the DevRel AMA with Max and Alexia and Serinko.
Thanks, Udo, for having me. Thank you guys for listening and coming on. I hope it was nice for you too. Have a fantastic weekend. Don't forget to go out. It's the summer, so don't spend too much time in front of your computers.
And I'm going to close with stay tuned for Shipyard Academy. It's going to be big. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be nice.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye. And now I start my singing block. Right?
No, you're not. You're not. Bye bye.
Bye bye.